Told the board that we start at 10:15, but they're all here and all here. So let's go ahead and get started. This is a call to order and welcome. We do have a quorum present. Absent, if you'll note this in the minutes too, absent is Matt. Unable to be here. He was on vacation. I think on spring break. At this time, I'd ask Mike Alfred to lead us in the invocation. If you all rise. Here. This microphone. Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you. Dear Father, blessed by our heads, please. Dear Father in heaven, thank you for the many blessings that you've given each of us in this room. And thank you for the blessings that are to come. We pray for wisdom as a board in discernment so that we make decisions that are fair and just. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen. Now, my life is to me. You all please face. American flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I pledge allegiance to the Texas, one state under God, one indivisible. Thank you very much. Just a quick review of the agenda. We have 2 consent items today. We'll handle those in a minute. They're the minutes from the last meeting and the resolution to appoint auxiliary ARB members. Following consent, we will have 3 action items, each of which are open for public comment. First one is action to consider modifying the board reappraisal plan as approved in August of 2024. 2 is action to consider sending full appraisal notices or postcards to non-reappraised property owners, and 3 action to consider adopting changes to or modifying our board of directors policy manual. Those who do wish to speak during any point of the meeting, please complete a speaker card with Ms. Waddell over here if you have not already. And following each of these action items, the agenda will be open for public comment. And if you wish to speak during public comment, you'll fill out a card as well. On the consent agenda, I would with the board on the agenda, consent agenda, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda. Want that pulled out? Okay, we're going to pull the minutes from the consent agenda, so let's just start with that. Then let's talk. It's there again. Approval of the minutes.
For the minutes, item number C. Seconds. Or second to the last sentence. So, what it says is network cabling services and asked Ms. Burgess second.
That's the change.
Take out asked.
Okay.
It's on page 4, 8C.
Yeah.
Consider responses to requests for proposals for 2025 network cabling.
We just accept that change. Okay. Is there any other changes to the minutes? Hearing none, entertain motion to approve the minutes.
I should correct.
Been moved and seconded to approve the minutes. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. The other item under consent then is resolution 2025-8 to appoint auxiliary ARB members recommended by board of directors subcommittee on ARB to the appraisal review board for 25-26. Entertain a motion to approve that consent. It's been moved for a second.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Discussion.
There is some information that needs to be shared with the board, and it was kind of a little lengthy. It's already shared with Matt, who is the chair of our committee. But Grady can go to a little detail. Mr. Higgins. He's
You're up to the mic. Yeah.
He's the TAG representative on the ARB committee.
Met and they discussed a lot of applicants to be appointed to the appraisal review board. there were 7 applicants that were approved to be appointed at that time by the ARB subcommittee. But all their documentation and everything wasn't together and in place at the time for them to be approved due to needing to have background checks done and getting that paperwork together, getting it from the applicants to be appointed. And those 7, all their documentation is come back and they are up to be appointed. Yes.
Terms.
Oh, their terms, we have to divide the terms up so that the ARB terms will expire half 1 year, half the next year. Well, because of the way that the terms are currently assigned to the ARB, we were fortunate in that the 4 appointees that are being reappointed could be afforded a 2-year term, where the new applicants could be afforded a 1-year term, and it was just serendipitous.
If anybody was has any questions.
Any questions? We have a motion on the floor to accept this, consent agenda. Is there further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. All opposed? That kind of stuff scares me to death. It would just take flying through. Thank you for those. Next action item is 6B. This is an action item to consider modifying the reappraisal plan related to resolutions from Maysville ISD, Castleberry ISD, Everman ISD, Fort Worth ISD, Innadale ISD, and now Northwest ISD, and the possible effects regarding the 2025 property value study. This is an action item open to public comment. I'm going to ask Mr. Bobbitt to introduce this action item, and then we will open it for public comment.
So we have received 6 resolutions now from different school districts asking us to reappraise. We have, at the work session, we presented the ratios that we currently have calculated for each of the school districts. So now it's essentially up to the board as far as what action you want to take. Stop, modify, or change, or continue the existing reappraisal plan.
This is a public action item up for public comment. I'll call your names in order, and I have them here. I believe everybody speaking is on this one. Yes. First to speak will be Sarah Kelly. Don't knock that thing over.
For allowing me to speak in front of you today. I am a resident of River Oaks. I have worked in Castleberry ISD and a strong supporter of it. And more importantly, I'm a local realtor. I live, work, and serve in the district. And from what I understand, that there's a proposal for $3.5 million being taken away from our local school district budget. I'm not sure how much you know about Castleberry, but we are a small but mighty district, and we are a small town surrounded by a big city. What attracts local home buyers to our district is our fine arts program, our technology, a lot of the things that are in our district. We cannot afford to lose any teachers, which I believe that would equate to approximately 47 teachers, and possibly closing of our schools, some of our schools. We cannot afford that. Our housing market would just deteriorate even more. We are finally on that trend to do better and to attract more home buyers. And schools around us are closing, and so we are attracting those residents into our district. And by closing, that would significantly negatively affect our community and our school district. So I encourage you not to withdraw any funds. If not, please add funds. We definitely welcome that to our community and our school district. Thank you.
Thank you. Next to speak is it Gibb?
Yes.
Okay, Gibb. Forward.
Hello, good morning. My name is Kim. I live in Fort Worth. Quoting the TAD mission statement, the Tarrant Appraisal District is to provide accurate appraisal of all property in Tarrant County at 100% market value, equally and uniformly, working to ensure that each taxpayer pays only their fair share of property tax burden as required by law. Now, as a taxpayer, I want to pay the least amount of tax possible. And I appreciate that certain board members, in their attempt to limit that through the adoption of a policy that keeps values flat for up to 3 years. However, I do not believe this policy will have the intended effect of reining in property taxes. This policy will only encourage a higher tax rate than what's necessary and will do nothing in terms of lowering property taxes. I can prove this mathematically, and I encourage anyone interested in seeing how to come talk to me after the meeting. Now, as the board determines a resolution of the 6 local ISDs to reappraise property this year, notably absent from that list is Grapevine Colleyville ISD, which they chose not to reappraise, despite a warning from the chief appraiser that Carroll ISD's property values are projected to be only at 83% of market value. So now my property in Fort Worth gets reappraised. It will be increased to a new value that is theoretically 100% of market value, which I can then protest. However, the city of Southlake and Carroll ISD will not be reappraised. And everyone there will also have a chance to protest their value like me, except theoretically they're starting at 83% of market value. This is a city that I think everyone will agree that on average is much more affluent and whose residents are much more wealthy than the average Fort Worth resident. And this policy flies in the face of the mission statement of the appraisal district, equal and uniform taxation. There is even an appeals court decree saying this practice is unfair and unconstitutional. In the 2001 case in Harris County, the 14th District Court of Appeals wrote, "We hold that it is unfair and constitutionally prohibited to require one taxpayer to pay tax based on market values if other taxpayers are paying at a rate that is lower than the market value of their properties." Clearly, I believe there's a problem with the board's policy of appraisal every 2 years, as it does not and will not lower our property taxes. What concerns me more, however, is the prospect of being unequally taxed, paying more than my fair share of taxes compared to a significantly wealthier segment of the county's population. And if this happens, it is because of your actions at the board. I encourage you to reassess your policies and to only implement ones that promote fair and equal taxation of all property tax owners while keeping the tax rates.
Thank you. Next to speak, Mary Lou Martinez.
President of ISD. So I'm here also to emphasize the request for a reappraisal, the importance and bearing it has on our school district, our community, our students, just everyone involved. So much has already been said that it just has my blood pumping and everything. My mind is going everywhere. But the future of the continued success of our small school district lays in the hands of the Tarrant County Appraisal Board. Once again, I urge you to consider the depth of the financial impact of your decisions in our community. The reduction of property taxes through the changes in the appraisal will greatly impact our day-to-day operations. Thus, the impact will be felt throughout the district. The children will notice changes. They'll notice the shortages. Sadly, they will no longer see some familiar faces that help them feel safe and secure. And that's something that we're tasked with, to help them feel safe and secure. It'll be hard to do that with less money. They will see more students in classrooms. They may not be able to access their teacher for one-on-one attention as easily as before. The funds are used by the district for teacher salaries, classroom resources, utilities, facility maintenance, and all of this will be significantly reduced. I appreciate your consideration to the needs of all taxpayers, and I have been one myself for 40 years. I understand that Tarrant County local property taxes are used to generate revenue to help pay for police, fire protection, public schools, road and street maintenance, ports, water and sewer systems. It sounds like there will be many areas of the county that will have budget shortfalls. I ask you again, as a taxpayer, please remember your mission statement as founded on the West. Therefore, I respectfully request that TAD board authorize a reappraisal for the 2025 tax year and take into account our small community and its unique needs. Thank you.
Next is Renee Smith-Falk.
Yes, board, thank you for this opportunity. My name is Renee Smith Faulkner, Superintendent of Casper Independent School District. I'm here today with an urgent request for the Tarrant Appraisal District Board to take immediate action and approve the reappraisals of properties within our district that are currently projected to fall significantly below the comptroller's property value study, or as in your discussion earlier, align with the 2-year cycle of the state comptroller PBS. And reappraise those years and freeze this year and unfreeze this year. Without these reappraisals, Casper ISD faces an immediate severe funding loss of approximately 3.5 million based on the numbers I've seen, a shortfall that will have a devastating impact on the quality of education we provide our students and our community. To put this into perspective, 3.5 million funds the salaries and benefits of 47 teachers. When we look at the average teacher salary, nearly 19% of our district's entire teaching staff. Castleberry ISD operates 7 campuses within just 6 square miles. We're very densely populated. We're recruiting and increasing in enrollment. It includes 3 elementary schools, 1 middle school, 1 high school, and an alternative learning center. Now, to put it in further perspective, our elementary schools are already near capacity. I can only accept about 100 more students in our district. With one campus employing 47 teachers, another elementary at 48, and a third with 36, losing $3.5 million is equivalent to defunding an entire campus, elementary campus, or even more. Where will I put these students? Adding to the crisis, schools are still operating on the same formula funding as 2019. We have squeezed every possible dollar, $4 million last year, to be exact, from our budgets to account for inflation, but there is nothing left in our budget to cut. It will harm our students. Consider these staggering increases for perspective. Utility bills in 2019 were $750,000 for the district. Today, they're $1.4 million. We have no money that we have received. We are squeezing this out of the existing budget of 2019. Insurance costs. I checked 2019, $194,000. Today, it's $500,000. Where do we get that money? These rising costs, combined with a 3.5 million funding loss, will force unthinkable decisions that we have to make. Closing a campus that is near capacity, increasing classroom sizes. I've looked at maybe 35 or more students per teacher. Athletics would be on, we look at our athletics, we have to look at fine arts programs eliminated and reduce support for our students. This is not just a financial issue, it's a matter of educational survival in our community. I urge you to please approve reappraisals. The future of our students, our community, and future workforce definitely depends on your decision today. I do want to add that a fair and equitable look at the stratas in Castleberry, because the stratas at the upper level or the more expensive homes are the ones out of alignment.
Thank you. Next will be Carmen Arietta Camillari. I think we went through this last time.
We got one.
Here.
Good morning, Carmen Arietta Camillari, Chief Financial Officer. Thank you for the opportunity to speak before you today. On behalf of our superintendent, our new superintendent, yesterday, and as well as on behalf of our board, I come here today to request a reversal of the 2025 values for local ISD. I've handed out and handing out a couple of slides that I wanted to present to you today. We are here, I'm here today because I wish the president to us that we are in danger of failing. And that is critical to us from a funding perspective. We have relied over the course of time, as you can tell by that particular slide, we relied on the stable
predictability, the reliability of the numbers that have come from the TAD over the years. Since 2019, when there was a significant change in the law that moved us to current year values, we've had to rely on current providing estimates from the very beginning of our budget cycle that comes from when you send us your preliminary values in April of 1 year. We don't get those values validated, if you will, from the state until January the following. So there's that timing lag, and we have to be able to rely on the numbers that you all provide to us. And it is imperative, again, have those numbers correctly. You can see the variance between the time that the TAD provides us the preliminary values, the certified values, the PTAD values, January, and the PTAD final in August. That is the concern that we have received from your chief appraiser, is that we are going to, the values are going to be significantly higher than the values that you want certified. And that is the concern. That is when the districts lose money. Not all districts are affected. Not all districts are here. But we are here because we have received information from your chief appraiser. It's caused us great concern, and we are going to lose funding. If we were to have used local values in the funding formula, we would have lost $26 million this year in January. I would have only been able to take that out of our funds. We have no room in our budgets because we have also spent it to a great extent. If we had had 5%, those values that come in 5% above local values, we would have lost $51 million. On the second slide is also what we respond. We do respond to your values. If you look at the tax rates, a document that I provided to you, we do respond. We have decreased our tax rate by 22 cents in the last 2 years. 22, 23, we're at 128.16. Now we're at 106.24, 22-cent reduction.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Next to speak, Dewey Elliott.
Oliver, believe it or not.
Okay. Welcome back.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for having me. Dewey Oliver, I'm the board president of SRIC. And I'm here tonight to talk about our district. We're here to talk about you guys. I was born here in 1968. Back when there was no seatbelt laws, that's for sure. You know, I rode the back of that pickup on the shoulder, you know, with my mom. So, you guys have taken us off to new roads. I appreciate that. I appreciate it. As a homeowner, I appreciate that. But we weren't wearing no seatbelts because we took out a fund balance and built it conservatively, took out of our fund balance and rebuilt our building. So we took our seatbelt. You guys are on new roads, unprecedented roads, having to deal with a lot of issues, what I've heard. Unprecedented issues. All I'm asking is this. I'm just asking you guys, should you put your hand down, do a reappraisal of the district? That's it. That's all. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next to speak, Sayeda Bilibis Said. I've been only for about a year and a half, and I know I just butchered that. Yeah.
Yes, I was an Alma resident town. That chief appraiser sent the letters to failing districts, including Grapevine Hollywood, I guess. I'm not surprised that my own district does not respond and not requesting to reappraise the properties. But as a taxpayer, I want you to reappraise the property because if you do reappraise for a certain area and not the whole district, you create not uniform and unequal properties all over the county. Who gave the appraisal district to pick and choose for winners or losers for the same year? For example, if you reappraise the property for forward ISD, that will create not uniform and unequal properties all over city of Forward. I'm a former Forward city resident because Forward is not only Forward ISD. Forward is Everman as well. Forward is Crowley as well. City of Forward is in Keller ISD. City of Forward in Eagle Mountain Saginaw ISD. City of Forward, part of City of Forward in White Settlement as well. So it will create a lot of issues. I don't know why you are deciding to either appraise for everyone or not to appraise for everyone. I'm not telling you what to do. You guys are smart individuals. Some people are elected to you. Some are the appointed board members. Please look into it and do your job. Like when we call city council, this means make decisions for the city. When you call school board trustee, this means you need to make decisions for the school district. And when we call appraisal district, you have the right to make decisions for appraisal district. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next to speak, Lucille Sari.
So here we are again. The first thing I want to point out here is that I don't understand if this is such an issue, how can only 5 out of the 49 different city ISD and city and ISD taxing entities have issues? Second, if this is an issue with the numbers that the state has been giving, this should be taken to the state and to the controller. John Donne, I posed that on the last meeting. Have you gone to the controller and check on this? Because again, Texas law says that we shall be appraised at least once every 3 years. So why are we doing numbers based on a yearly appraisal? If you have a job that might pay you as increase once every 3 years, would you budget every year to count with an increase? No, you wouldn't. Now, so I don't think that this is an issue for this board to handle. I think this board needs to stick with the policies that was passed in the appraisal plan, as 80% of the taxing entities, 80+% of the taxing entities are good with this, and the taxing entities that are not should take it to the controller and have reviewed those numbers. This legislature, there's 2 different bills that are under review. There's one bill that said that we will be appraised every year by Democrat Chris Turner, surprise, surprise. And then there's another bill that is putting for an appraisal of just once every 3 years. So what are we gonna do then? If we are, you guys by law should only appraise once every 3 years, how are we gonna deal with this issue? This is not up for you guys to fix. You need to stay with the appraisal plan, because if you appraise them, you need to appraise all Tarrant County. You cannot pick and choose. By the law, you are allowed to do what you're doing, so stick with what you're doing. People are already being taxed out of their houses because our taxes keep on going up. Not to mention that your appraisals are not accurate. I would like to hear, John Donne, again, how many arguments that we have, how many disputes we had on the appraisal. Use this year, make a better appraisal process, that way you have less disputes in the appraisals, and then next year, we appraise based on whatever the legislator decides this session. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Chandler Crouch. And Chandler Crouch, I live in Fort Worth, and I think that something that's kind of interesting that is just emerging in these public comments is that it seems like both sides agree that if you reappraise one area, you've got to reappraise everybody. And I was thinking that
to change it to coincide to reappraise everybody in line with the property value study year, that might solve the problem, but that actually wouldn't, because that would mean that like the difference between last year and this year is showing that Castleberry and Fort Worth and these districts that Chief Appraiser sent letters out to, those are out of compliance in just 1 year. So it seemed like a good idea. Now I'm just kind of piecing all this together, how it works. The interesting thing is that all these school districts have different problems. It's kind of the net effect is the same thing. We've got budget issues. It relates to values and reappraising, but you've got some school districts are property rich, some are property poor, some have new schools, some are fast growth, some have declining enrollment with old schools that need repairs. And so you just have and then you have these different buckets that the money comes out of, and the values deal with these things differently. I think that one of the biggest issues that we're dealing with is not necessarily the reappraisal plan; it's the unexpected change in how they had made plans for a while and then unexpectedly changed. To echo what somebody else said here, the one thing that's really refreshing is that these publicly elected guys came, they ran on something, said we're going to go in there and fight for taxpayers, and they showed up and did it. And they've gotten stuff passed to focus on some problems that we've had for a long time. And my focus here is that we don't undo the progress that's been made. We've got a great board here. If something isn't done to take care of these few issues, and then the next time these guys are up for re-election, the whole board's going to flip. We're going to have a different set of circumstances. And one more thing I want to say is just to recognize that this is largely a political thing. It's policy related, but when we put Mr. Joe Don in harm's way, or to have to fight this battle, he's the one that's got to deliver the letters. He's the guy that if something goes wrong, his name's going to be on the hook. And he's a great guy. I don't want to see him leave. I know what we've had before, and I just want to make sure as we go about this process that the big picture is considered. These edge cases where we've got some real funding issues in jeopardy, or Mr. Joe Don's job, or whatever happens here, just to make sure that these guys are protected and considered as we navigate. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jim. Next will be Daniel Ben.
Signed up for this particular, right? I did. But I'm glad I was called because I have been in Castleberry's board room numerous occasions. I sent my note up, Laura. I'm sure certainly know Ms. Smith Faulkner. And I know that she's been running a lean machine for years. And I know Lynn and the city council for Rock too. Has anybody besides school boards that you've been on, been in any other school board except for a communal meeting? How many been in River Oaks on this board? Okay, that's next to the base, right? I don't know how many military children attend Castleberry, but I certainly don't want to be putting our military in harm's way if they have children, if they're attending this Faulkner school. And all of a sudden now, their duty is make it safe, not having to worry about running schools. There's a myriad of different issues here. Chandler, thank you very much for saying what you said. I saw you get attacked in Arlington, Mr. Joe Don, because of this very thing. So did William Durham. And I'm not going to let that happen. The burden that he shoulders is a burden you place upon your employee, and he's handling it very well. And I hope that you will consider what's been said today. I've met with Carmen. I met with Ms. Faulkner. I've met with a myriad of different school districts. They all have different problems, as Chandler says, and different dynamics. But the one thing that is common is you guys just switch gears. If you guys maybe waited a year and then went to every other year, there's a lot of people who would be here. You would give a chance for them to realign their budget in a way of thinking and not create these issues. I live in Parker County. I left every 2 years. I sold my property. I live in Tarrant County. And it can't work. But it has to work with a unified group to make it work. And Chandler's right, there's been a lot of changes to this organization over the last 7 years, and do not unwind it. Too much work's been done. Thank you.
Thank you, David. That was the last of our public speakers on this topic. I entertain a motion to close the public comment. Then moves or second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. All opposed? Motion carries. So we're back to the action item on the table then. We have a motion or other action regarding this item. Discussion? Sure.
Okay. Well, I'd like to open up discussion and present 3 options. I'll do it quickly and succinctly, most of which was done in our work session. But just to recap where we are and some of the issues that are on the table. So I have some visual aids to help us with. The deal we're dealing with is the values of property. And they're ever changing. You can have Chandler and you can sell a piece of property 12 times and you probably get 12 different values. On any given month, those values go up and they go down. And up until this point, up until last year, this was done annually. What we have changed now is we have frozen the values. We've taken a snapshot of values and we want to hold it for 2 years. Keep in mind that this still goes on in the background and changes values. This all sounds fine and dandy, and it's good for the taxpayers, maybe, because what it does is it puts a hold on it for a period of time. Now, I would argue, but I'm not going to argue today, there may be a taxpayer surprise at the end of this. Because the values go up a little bit, they may have that. But that's not what's on the table to be discussed today. What's to be discussed today is how this has, unfortunately, had some unintended consequences. So if we do nothing today, my fellow board, we will have some districts that are going to lose funding. And to my taxpayers out there, it isn't funding that goes back to you. It is taxpayer money that is lost, whether that be in Castleberry or Fort Worth. And as good stewards of taxpayer money, I cannot sit on this board and consider that to be a good decision, which means we have to do something. So we really have 2 issues, 2 ideas that are on the table. And by the way, and nobody has a crystal ball, if we don't do anything, there is a possibility that this entire issue gets taken out of our hands. And I'm a big fan of local control. I do not want this decision made for us, one way or the other, down in Austin. So all eyes are on us to try to see what we can do about this. So here's what's on the thing. We have some districts that, right, wrong, or indifferent, whether we decided it or not, we hoped it wouldn't happen, are going to lose funding. So we can reappraise those districts. And a lot of districts are here, that's what this action item is. But I tend to think also that that may be equitably unfair to them. Because as we heard testimony, that would affect some districts, not others. And I believe Fort Worth would constitute like 52% of our county. But this is a solution that we cause by holding down these values. Unintended consequence, mind you. But it is something that this board has done. And as I'm on this board, I take ownership of that to help fix it. Now, it has been suggested. A third idea, which Chandler mentioned and a few others mentioned. And this idea takes into consideration both. We're going from a win-lose to a win, instead of a win-lose on both sides. Is there a possibility of a win-win? Now, Mr. Chandler, you made a good point. If we postpone the freezing of values 1 year, aren't we just kicking this down the road? Well, the answer is twofold. Because part of the problem with this in school districts is all about the timing. We're dealing with timing issues of effects that we do on this board versus effects of the PBS study. And budgets done in districts with our school boards are done almost a year in arrearages. So they can't adjust. So Mr. Chandler, one of the things that would happen by moving this entire idea, just sliding it down a year, is it would buy them budgetary time to adjust accordingly. It would also pull out of a legislative session, which is a whole other conversation, which I'm not going to have, which would also help them out. My final point about this, I do not want to take away the great progress we've done. I just think option 3, we have to change the time. If nothing else, to give them a time to adjust. Also gives it time to see what else happens in our legislative session. This is an unintended consequence that's happened to at least 5 or 7 of these districts. There are many others out there that haven't figured it out yet, that won't know. We have to do something, and we have to do something today. That's my recap opinion of where we're at.
Other comments?
I'm in alignment with what, Fred has just said. And that's been my whole contention all along. It's not that I'm so opposed to the 2-year, with no appraisals. It was the freeze that negatively impacted our taxing entities. There was no planning. It was kind of slammed there. And then when they were told there was no way to recover from that. If we remove that and get these studied, then it would also give them an opportunity down the road as well as doing this. So removing this 1 year, when I heard about it, it was proposed as an ability to give relief to the taxpayers because the market was either going to be stable or go down. Well, if the market is stable, then okay, it doesn't have an impact. If it goes up, then we don't get those tax dollars. But if it goes down, those people which is what is projected at this point, then the people who are paying taxes higher are essentially losing out and having to pay more taxes rather than less because their values went down. So that year doesn't make sense to me in any way, shape, or form. I'm not opposed to the 2-year freeze. I'm just opposed to, the 2-year tax appraisals. I'm just opposed to this freeze and how the impact is on our taxing entities.
Other, yes.
This started out with our chief appraiser talking about the anticipated values for this upcoming year, this last year, and asserting that all markets see the upcoming market as being flat. And when we were making this decision, it seemed that all markets were going to look to be flat. And apparently in at least 8 districts, the market was not flat, as we have some actual data to look at. And I agree with some of the discussion that we've had out here and that we had back in the work session related to equal and uniform taxation and the equal and uniform appraisals. That's based in law. It is in our taxation Bibles that the state wrote for us that we must follow. And related to the school districts, that this isn't really, it's being painted in here as you're trying to get more money out of the locals. But the crux of the issue is really in the state funding. And it's been discussed in past discussions, but today that really wasn't hit upon. And I want everyone to remember that the crux of the issue really is the state funding, and the property value study is that crux of the state funding. And if our numbers are off, then that state funding is lost through the property value study. So there are issues with it, and I believe that I understand the theatrics with the 3 option issues. Thank you for painting it so. I just wanted to remind everyone, that It's not so much, if it is, as we were looking at last year, if it really is flat for everything, then what is the problem, if we did a reappraisal this year and only the districts that that are having problems changed and everything else stayed the same? Because, some, including mine, actually went down this year. So we can't paint everything with a broad stroke brush because it's not. That's my comments, sir.
Thank you. Other comments? Yes.
So I'll share a little tidbit of information about myself to kind of prove my point here. Like, some of y'all know I've said publicly, I'm not currently a homeowner. I'm working on becoming a homeowner. And it was an interesting situation I came across during my house hunt. So I can afford to buy a home. Chase Bank confirmed that with me. I can get the pre-approval. That's not a problem. The challenge I faced wasn't being able to get the loan or the mortgage approved. The challenge I faced was, if I buy a home in Tarrant County, will I get to keep it 2 or 3 years from now? That was the challenge I faced. I respect our fellow board members who wanted to bring this topic up. I understand the point you're making. I just want to make this point so that you understand why I'm about to vote, why I vote, depending on what the motion is. The action that some out there and some board members are asking me to take, I need you to understand this. This is very serious. If we make a change from the reappraisal plan, if we do a reappraisal, there are people in Tarrant County that will lose their home as a consequence. And that is a statement of fact. There are people out there, when they get that notice, or when they see that increase in their mortgage payment, or they see that increase in their property tax bill, they're going to have to sell. If you don't believe me, we got some realtors in this room right here. I've talked with realtors who have told me they've had previous clients, they helped them buy a home 3-4 years ago, came back to them saying they cannot afford to keep their house. I just wanted to make that point so you understand why I'm about to make the decision that I'm going to make. Thank you.
I have a follow-up comment.
Sure.
So I totally appreciate what you're saying. Yeah, I've come on for 27 years and people too. My values go up, my mortgage goes up. But understand something, I want to give you a visual. What we're doing is we are holding down for a short period of time. If values continue to go up a little bit, it's not going to change. We've solved the problem of not being able to afford it today, but they will get a taxpayer surprise and it will still go up 2 years or 3 years from now. So your point that you are making, which I totally want to validate, it makes sense to me, is only deferring the ball downstream, because there will be an appraisal 2 years from now, and that value, if values continue to go up, will be higher. So you still have the same problem, even though we, as Tarrant County, put the hold on appraisal. It doesn't change. That's my point to your argument.
Let me share a thought or two, and I'll start with the fact that when you get home, remember that's probably off of your washing machine.
Yes.
Yeah, before you fire that, I don't. It's fine.
Very, very.
Great moment for a little light. Polling in the state of Texas states very clearly that Texans say sky taxes are a major burden. This is not a partisan conversation. All Texans are being burdened by high taxes. The other thing they're being burdened by is high insurance. And if we could sit on the insurance commission, I'd have a lot of comments for them, being somebody that's in the insurance business. So this is perhaps one of the largest bipartisan topics in the state. And I was not on the board when this decision was made, but would have supported this decision then. May have tweaked it some, given what we know today, but I think everybody can look back and figure out what they could have done 7 months ago. They might not made that same decision today. This decision is not a new decision. People that are reacting to it today have had since last August to react to this decision. I suppose it was made because of some assumption that real estate was going to be flat, but I really don't know where that came from either. Because we live in the great state of Texas, in what I consider the greatest county in the great state of Texas. And if you haven't caught on, people are moving here daily in thousands. The market isn't flat as a result of that. Market has no option but to go up because of that. I'm an economics major with a finance degree, and I understand very clearly supply and demand. We have a supply and demand challenge that's forcing prices up. Today, we have a new challenge going on out of Washington, and every time the word tariff comes up, our stock market goes down, but our home values don't seem to be responding to that. The interest rate may, but the prices haven't. And so I'm not sure where that came into the conversation in August, but I wasn't a part of that. The Texas Constitution, Article 8, Section 1E states, in quote, no state ad valorem tax shall be levied upon any property within the state. And the Texas Constitution, Article 8, Section 23A says there shall be no statewide appraisal of real property for ad valorem purposes. Ultimately, we are not to have a state property tax in the state of Texas, but with the school funding system, including the infamous Robin Hood policy, all based upon the property appraisals, we in fact have a very robust state ad valorem tax. I wanted to say that because I think we're being watched right now. I think there are people in Austin right now watching this meeting that need to hear very clearly, not only from members of this board, but from those of you that are struggling through how to respond to this issue, that we've got a challenge in this state, particularly with funding schools. We may have some cities that are upset about this, but I'll tell you, I haven't heard from a single one of them. I've only heard from schools in this conversation, which leads to where the real problem is. The problem is not with the Tarrant Appraisal District. The problem is not with the comptroller's office. The problem is with your organization called the TEA. The TEA that determines the backside of this funding model that says, based upon what the appraisal districts tell us, here's this multiple page document that none of you could figure out unless you're the CFO of your school. And I'm not sure all of you can. That answers, therefore, here's what we're going to receive from the state taxing. If you don't understand this book, and I would suggest Joe Don doesn't understand this book, because I don't think any human can understand this book. You don't understand tax property issues in the state of Texas. And then we have a policy that got passed in August of last year that's 126 pages long. And then you have a TEA model that if you can't understand how to do your own personal taxes, it's actually a shorter form than the TEA's form. We've got big issues here that aren't in this room. I would question to anybody in the school business, where are you with TEA on this conversation? Not TASB, that's a whole different conversation. That group, I'm not talking about them. They met a couple of weeks ago. I don't know what the conversation was at that conference, but where are you with TEA in arguing you're being mistreated? Because this is what I think is the fact. I think you're being extremely mistreated by TEA and how they do their funding for you, based upon numbers that are very hypothetical. We're sitting here today trying to make a decision based upon a hypothesis of what rates are going to be if we choose to reappraise. One solid comment is they could go down. They won't. I can guarantee you, nobody in this room can remember your taxes going down as a result of the appraisal process. Your taxes went down because local government officials made solid decisions to raise homestead exemptions and to lower tax rates. Those of us that lived in Tarrant County for some time, I've lived here for almost 30 years. It wasn't until just recently that the local elected organizations started getting wise to the fact that taxpayers are tired of this conversation. The taxpayers are tired of being back to the corner. When I was running for this office, I can't tell you the number of people that literally said to me, I will have to move out of Tarrant County. And that's not hyperbole. That's not some cap. It's not some hose off the back of their washing machine. I'm actually playing with you. But it's fact. And that's the challenge we're up against. If we do in fact reappraise, we're reappraising for every one of them. All of them are going to have higher taxes. Not just in your school district, everywhere. Fort Worth ISD is one of the groups on this list. They are 52%. Is that what they are? 52% of the county. It's not going to just be for the school district, though. It's also going to be for their county taxes, for their school, for their community college taxes, for their hospital district taxes. It's not just a school conversation when you start talking about reappraising. Way bigger than that. The taxpayers are tired of this conversation. The conversations with schools, I know you have a limited reality because of what TEA does to you. I also know, though, that schools continue to add to their ad valorem. Some cases they have to because of the way the laws are written. In other cases, it's choices. I don't know how many schools they have an indoor workout facility for the football program. It was just maybe 20 years ago that any college in the country had such a thing, much less high schools. We continue to spend money. We don't stop and say, what are we going to do when we don't have the money to spend? I know in my household, that comes the time where we have to cut back on something. And if we're having this problem that we all know we're having, my challenge to the entities is where are you cutting back? We heard from a superintendent today that they may have cut further, they cut as much as they can, while at the exact same time we heard from their school board president that just last year we spent a lot on the middle school. So it's a dichotomy of conversation. It's just a challenge that we had. I think we as a board are stuck in the middle of having to make a decision to support issues that really aren't our issues. Your issues lie with TEA.
So Chairman, I would like to request that we that we move this vote until after executive, briefly discuss with our attorney an executive session after, under section 551.071 of Texas.
We do have an executive session scheduled, and we are going to go into this executive session in regards to this topic. So suggested that we hold this decision until after we meet with our attorney in the executive session. Is there any challenge? Seeing none, we will do that. The next thing on the agenda then, and for those of you who are here for only that topic, hang in there with us. We've got another topic today. There's an action item, consider sending, well, this is the next one. Action item, consider sending full appraisal notices or postcards to non-reappraisal property owners. Mr. Bobbin, I'm going to ask you to elaborate.
So this is just to get clarification based on the current reappraisal plan. There have been comments during board meetings unofficially that the board would like for us to notify all properties with the full appraisal notice, that way they know, taxpayers know the value's not going to change. There's roughly 429,000 properties that we would not have to notify at this point. If we send a full notice, that's $337,000. If we send a postcard, it's $217,000. So by sending a postcard notifying people that, hey, your value did not change, we're not required to send a full notice, we would be able to save $120,000. Or we just PR it and not send any notice, and then we save $337,000. So basically, it's just what is y'all's threshold? What y'all want to send out? Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Two of us up here that have sat through this issue before. Right now, we have a problem with Dallas County making statements that are different than our statements. To give you an example, with the car registration, our car inspection process, they were very good about putting out what we're going to do in the future, and put out that you had. No. It was homestead.
Yes.
they in Dallas County are requiring everybody to re-homestead every single year, and we're not doing that in this county. If you don't get a postcard from us telling us you don't your homestead continue, then you don't have to worry about it. And so I think we need to stay ahead of that. We got a lot of people that are overlapping. So my answer to your question, is we need to definitely do at least a postcard. I think the question before the board is the bigger part of the conversation.
Joe, Ron, could you clarify exactly what the difference in information level is between the two?
The postcard would be very generic and it'd be basically the same thing for every homeowner. It basically have their address, and a statement saying that due to the reappraisal plan, their property was not, the value did not change the appraised value. So if they have a homestead cap, we'll apply to send them a notice. But all the others, residential properties, rental properties, all those that do not change at all, we will send them a postcard that just says, because of the reappraisal plan, there's been no change in value to your property.
Before we make a decision, this is an action item for public comment, and this is Daniel Ben's sign.
That's it. It wasn't. Well, thank you for the opportunity to speak on that item. Great comments. The reason I want to speak to this item is because this is dating back to the prior administration. It says in the tax code, reappraise your property, and it's clear and convincing evidence, then the following year after you protested the ARB, your value could go up. It's supposed to have a stationary period. You went to the ARB and that settlement was adjudicated. Well, Mr. Law, he got so behind the curve, the software was so bad, these people would go to ARB and next year they have to protest again and again and again and again. This is what got us to this point. It's why people run around pissed off. And there's still people in this room participating in that. There's people in this building that still participate. So sending out this notice, number one, will let people know that, hey, your property did not go up. Well, that's a change. Instead of just not receiving something. So I agree with you, Mr. Mars. Until we solidify this ambiguity that's going on with this board, we should be able to give people the opportunity to protest. Say, hey, it was $1 last year, it's $1 this year, and you have the right to protest. Please come see us. That's what the postcard should say, Mr. Playlock. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion from the board or a motion? Crouch. Come on. Give you the entire 3 minutes or
I was going to say, I'll speak as much as the board member at this meeting. This is great. First of all, I just want to say thank you so much for the conversation. So many points that you guys made are right. And this is what you have a board for, is because you have all these intersecting interests and ideas. And I just really appreciate the discussion. On this item, I wanted to just bring forth a topic that might be a little bit more cost effective. I'm not sure logistically what will be involved in this, but we're talking about mailing out something physical to let people know. I would love to see some kind of electronic opt-in so that people might be able to get a notice like this through email. I realize there's some logistical issues and maybe even cost issues that we might not be aware of involved in doing that, but an electronic notification seems to might be a good happy middle ground. And then on the heels of that, any last minute change, no matter what it is, whether it was related to the last topic or this topic, I again just want to mention be somebody here that's saying, please consider Joe Don Bobbitt in all of this. We're throwing him in some pretty difficult situations if we decide to send out notices, reappraise, whatever it is. These last minute changes put him in the line of fire for these guys and the public and everybody to try and hold his feet to the fire. And I just want to say, give him some consideration because we don't want him going anywhere. All right, that's all I've got. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I would entertain a motion to close public hearing. What you're on.
Motion to
Motion to close public hearing. Is there a second? This. Okay, come on. My apologies. Go ahead.
My concern is if you do not send the letter, does those property owner has the right to protest against, not notifying? Or your postcard covers you legally, for not to notify, they have the right to protest? And I have a question with Mr. Kevin.
We all want that we do not, or that we're not legally required to send a notice on it. And so by sending a postcard, we're legally compliant anyways, because we're not required to do these properties.
Well, people knew about the view letter when they got it in the mail. They knew it's April, they are property owners. It's the season to get new love letter from their appraisal district. So they wait for everything. Thank you.
That's QR code on it, but we have to.
And so people have it's been years. People have understanding if it's blue letter from appraisal district, it's somewhat very close to their tax bill, although it's not a tax bill, but it will explain it to everyone. Thank you.
Any other, now can we close public hearing? It's been moved. Second, all in favor, close the public hearing, say aye. All opposed, public hearing is closed. Any further comments on this?
Suggestion. Make it blue, but put any updated news. If there's any moving parts there, updates, they can go there. To get additional news about things.
I'm gonna make a motion that we send a postcard to all taxpayers that will be in non-reappraised properties.
I'll second.
Yeah, a motion on the floor now.
Yeah, I don't want to belabor this hearing that, we get electronic notices from DOT to renew our registration. Various other public agencies have taken advantage of the efficiencies of electronic applications. Again, I don't want to get us into a quagmire, but have we looked into that? And if you can quickly kind of let me know, Mr. Roddick, what are the pros and cons of doing it like, electronic opt-in or something like this that can save the district? There's thousands of dollars.
We have the dashboard, so people can sign up for our dashboard and see everything about their property. So they would have access to that. If we have an email address, we could send them out electronically. There would just be probably a large portion of these people that we do not have any electronic communication on them. We just don't know who their email address is.
Understood. I mean, like this being said here, I mean, as I know, you get jury notices now electronically. That may be something, it may be too big of a moving part for today, but this may be something that we as a board want to look into for a cost saving and efficiency measure going forward, not only on this, but other notification issues we have. So I don't know that I don't want to suspend the vote on the motion that we currently have in front of us, but I would like to look into that further.
We definitely want to encourage that when we move to true project, it'll have more support for that.
Great.
So my comment was that, kind of along the same lines, we're talking about cost savings. So if we send the cards out, we know what the cost associated with that is. What would it cost us labor and resources to monitor and or send those electronic? So it's not for today, but something to also take into consideration if we were to be a little bit cost effective.
If it's incorporated with the dashboard or the future canvas system, it should be fairly minimal.
That may be the way to go.
It's the latest that we
For this, we know pretty much today. I don't know, technology wise, we'd have the ability to do emails at this point. Besides this, we already have an existing agreement set up with the person. It would be very few.
It's maybe a short-term solution.
Yeah.
For this year,
Yes.
to next year.
Yeah.
And I think we can expect
kind of agree with Alfred. This maybe we have to do today, but maybe we could have a situation. Getting the
Send a postcard to those who will not be reappraised, say aye. All opposed, motion carries. Next topic on the agenda, is an action item. To consider adopting changes to or modifying the board of directors policy manual. Mr. Alfred, I'm going to ask you just to introduce the umbrella. Don't get into details because we'll share public comments.
Fair enough. So one of the first things that when I got on the board in January is we looked at the board policy that the board did adopt in the January meeting. And I went and looked at it and came up with proposed revisions to the policy. I looked at it with an eye of the board policy should be a list of thou shalt and thou shalt nots effectively. And what I saw in the prior board policy, although, had some very admirable things in it, were a lot of shoulds. You should do this, should do that. And just from an efficiency standpoint as well, there were a number of items that I thought, frankly, could lead to potential ambiguity, or what happens if somebody doesn't follow this, what are the repercussions, if any. So with that kind of an eye, I went into the board policy and came up with a shorter, I think more efficient and more easily understood, less ambiguous set of policies. And I'm happy to go into any particular ones, but following your lead, Mr. Chair, just giving the umbrella approach, that was the task. And Mr. Campos and Ms. Pena also sat on the committee. We had a good long session with our legal counsel going over that, and that's how we got to where we are today.
Okay, thank you. This is a public comment. Three speakers are sad.
districts are requesting to reappraise, please consider the other factors as well. ISD is over 90% of the kids are economically disadvantaged. And when ISD is over 94% of kids are economically disadvantaged.
So the topic of the
Oh, no, that's public comments.
Oh, yeah, we'll come back. What public comment on this? You want to be able to speak on this side?
No.
Okay, thank you. We'll bring back up. Chandler, you do want to speak on the Chandler, perhaps.
I know, I'm loving this new public comments thing. It's just great. And that's actually what I want to speak on today is we got this board policy revisions up for consideration. And as you might imagine, the public comments section of that policy is of great interest to me. And I know a lot of you guys haven't been in the room on the during all these meetings as I have and Mr. Bennett have for several years now. We've been here at almost every single meeting, and the public comments portion of the meeting has served a great purpose. It has been something that I've enjoyed quite a bit, but I also think it's something that's added a significant amount of value. There are things that can be said over here that you guys can't say. There's a lot of information we're going to have access to that you wouldn't. And so I just want to commend you guys on the policy that looks like it is going to be voted on today. The page numbers are kind of weird because if you're looking at the PDF, there's a page number on each page, but then there's also like the page of the PDF. So it just kind of depends on which way you're looking at it. It's either page 7 or 18. Talking about the public comments, it says, unless the chair determines otherwise, the public comment period will be first item on the agenda before the board discussions or acts on the other agenda items. And so I understand today it's not that way because we're operating under the old policy. And so I just wanted to say thank you for moving the public comments to before the discussion items. I know that was something that was under consideration last time, and I will be enjoying giving those public comments before discussion items. And thank you for taking that into consideration. Thank you.
Daniel Ben.
Chairman Barnes, I want to give you a little history on the board policy. 17, they had an update. Picture. That was 28. But I asked for the prior director's pay from the prior administration. I got it with patients. And they couldn't find the page. Imagine that. You pass the manual and it's missing a page and for to it. How does that happen? So we tried to get that board updated in 2020. There was a committee.
I thought my
Wyoming,
bestie was going crazy.
Wendy Burgess, Richard Dion. They recluded themselves. They did very much for Mr. Campos, Ms. Beckham, and Mr. Allen. And it was a public meeting. It was taped. It was during COVID. And there was a pledge of promise of a second meeting. I'm still waiting on that one. So thank you for your efficiency when it comes to supplements. Why there was never a second meeting and never proposed changes brought to the board? We have to go ask Ms. Wyland. We can ask Ms. Burgess. So here we are today. I just want a couple comments. When it comes to primary duties of the board, it is to hire general counsel. You need to audit that before you pass that. You approve professional services such as external attorneys, and you hire general counsel after that. That's not it. Second, and that's on page 1, like Chandler said, it's a little weird, but under the communications policy, you have 2 bullet points. In your marked up copy, there's 3. Something's missing. So what you're going to approve today is not entirely in its correct form. So I would postpone this. So after the executive session, have admin go through it to make sure that what's been presented to this board reflects the changes that Mr. Alford and the committee has done, and come back and then vote on.
We have for this topic, here, motion to close public hearing. We move that we close. Is there a second? Second. All in favor, say aye. All opposed? All right, Mr. Alford, back to you.
All right, the marked up copy was the initial, just for clarification here, the one that is redlined or if it shows the track changes is the version that I put together for comment within the committee. The clean version is the one that came as a result of the discussion items that we had during the committee. And there were a couple of items that were taken out after the committee meeting. Okay? I will also say as a discussion point, we put in a change of the meeting time to Wednesday evenings because we felt that, for example, we've got a number of people from Castleberry ISD here at this meeting during the middle of the day. And, you know, it always begs the question of who's minding the store back at the school district. So if we had an evening meeting time, that may accommodate the taxing entity representatives to be able to attend the meeting easier. So we suggested 6 p.m. on Wednesday evenings so that we can have more attendance from those who are vested in our decision-making process. That's one of it. The 2 items that were removed from the committee discussion that are still very much in play for discussion as a whole would be engagement of legal counsel in the process for doing that. And then on the communication policy for the chief appraiser, communicating with the various taxing entities to include the presiding officer, as that term is defined by the comptroller. I will say, speaking as a whole for the committee on the communication policy for Mr. Bobbitt, the idea was on any kind of a major communication, and therein lies the problem, is how do you define what's major and what's not? We felt like the presiding officer should be in the loop and not just the CFO or the second in command for the CFO in a particular district. But it got kind of hard to legislate in writing as to, okay, when do we draw the line? So we just felt like for a discussion item for the entirety of the board that, you know, we could give direction to the chief appraiser that, hey, you kind of know it when you see it. If this is kind of a big deal, we need to be including the presiding officer. Then on the engaging of legal counsel, you know, as Mr. Bryant said in the very first meeting, we want to run an efficient ship here. We want to keep our costs down as much as possible. And Mr. Pepper is very good at what he does, and he charges his time for a living. So if we have 9 individual board members calling Mr. Tepper on any given issue, then that can lead to a pretty large bill. And so the thought would be, if there is an issue that could be consolidated and it's important enough to the majority of the board, then, you know, we run it by either the secretary or the chair to then coordinate a consultation with counsel in order to keep the legal expenses down. But then that begged the question of, okay, what if there are urgent emergency issues? What if there are other issues that require one of us to reach out to Mr. Tepper? And it got very difficult, especially given what I do for a living, and words matter. They mean things, to write down scenarios where that would be appropriate versus not appropriate. And at that point, we agreed as a committee to remove those 2 items from the initial version that I put together and having a discussion with one for the board. So other than that, I mean, I think the policies speak for themselves. There may be some things that we want to discuss that I haven't brought up, but those, I think, and with the chair's permission, I'll turn it over to Fred and Morgan to see if I've left anything out. But from a committee perspective, I think that summarizes where we are.
So I just want to add a comment to this, that this is not like a one and done thing. It's kind of a living document. We may not review it all, but this is definitely needed and changed. But also too, you know, the meeting time may change or something may change on this, but at least now we have a base.
Okay, my experience in every position I've ever been, whether elected or in a nonprofit status, is that as a courtesy, you always copy furnish the chair, and in this case, it would be Joe Don. I've always followed that procedure myself. But what we have to remember is we are governance, and in governance, we have direct report employees to all of us, not 1, not 2 individuals. Or, in this case, the chief appraiser, our attorney, the tax liaison officer, and the chair and the secretary of the arbitration board. Those are direct employees, direct report to this board. Any one of us have the authority or the right to go directly to that employee and have a discussion. I'm going to be Rich Diot here right now. There's nobody going to tell me that I can't talk to our attorney. He's a direct report employee, and I have the right as a person on this board to do so. I will do so. Now, if it's something that the attorney feels needs to be expanded and go further to the board, I leave that to his discretion. Unless even if it's attorney-client privilege and he believes the board should know, I have no problem with any of that. But I will not be held back to talk to any of these individuals. And I felt like none of the board should have to go through somebody. This is part of your thou shalt nots that you, because you felt like it was part of the other proposed amendment. So that to me was a thou shalt not, that I shall do. And that's why I was strongly opposed to having that one part in the amendment. I have no problem with furnishing people. That's a courtesy that you should have as a board member to anybody on here. If I think that's something that not only our chair should know, that somebody else should know, then when I get the response from Joe Don, I think it's appropriate for him to respond to all of us if I should have him to ask a question. That's transparency. That's working together as a team. So the only part I have a problem with is someone dictating to me that I cannot talk to a direct employee myself. I don't need anybody telling me how to talk to those individuals.
Go ahead. I have one more item as I look back through my notes. We didn't have as a board a discussion for. I have in my notes, ask the board for a vote.
I've got a number of things.
Okay.
It starts with that. I don't know why a board policy ever says when we're gonna meet. We're gonna meet when we need to meet. We're gonna call meetings when we call meetings, and one of the things that's on our agenda is the end of every meeting, we announce the next meeting. So predetermining, we're gonna meet on Wednesdays at 6 p.m. the last Wednesday of the month, may or may not. Today is not that. So I think we strike that entire, the board, telling us when we will meet, and then talk about how the schedule is. So I'm gonna go through all my thoughts here and we'll come back. Under new director orientation, the attorney of the board of directors will conduct a district orientation for the new directors. And it explains why. Those of us that have just been through this, you know what that actually is. Anybody in this room is smart enough to understand the reason the attorney wants to talk to you is give you your CYAs. And that's what the attorney does. I was in that meeting, didn't learn a thing about sitting on this board about what they said, what not to do to get, so I don't get sued. And so that's effective. The second paragraph, though, to say that the chair will coordinate orientation for new directors, we may not even have a chair at the time we're talking about. And so I think we don't put a title on that, and if we want to say the chief appraiser does it, if we want to, or just say that a new orientation for new directors will take place. I'm not sure how to say who will. Yeah. Under the developing board meeting agendas, we need to clarify a couple of things. Under number 1, it says that these 3 days, I'd like to clarify that we're going to say at least 3 business days. This would imply that we're talking about Saturdays and Sundays. And if you're working on this, or you're working on here stuff for here on Saturdays and Sundays, I need to encourage you to get a little life balance in place. But I would also ask this is a question for the board members: is 3 days before the regular scheduled meeting time enough for you to do your homework for this meeting? Right. And so I don't know in 3 days, we may want to come back. Someone come back to that. Just write that in the notes. Under number 2, two directors submitting a policy. That's okay with that one. Not okay with saying that the chair does not have the authority to decline. Does have the authority to decline any such requests. I don't think the chair should ever have the authority to decline a request from 2 board members for an agenda item. So I strike that sentence. And then the last sentence, I would add business days instead of calendar days. Under consent agenda, I think it's interesting that we're listing what we put on a consent agenda versus simply saying we have a consent agenda. Consent agenda is typically come about because of the culture of the organization. We learn over time that we don't need to read the minutes every single meeting. Although there's times we may actually need to read the minutes for the meeting, versus just saying we will have a consent agenda and not list what would go under consent agenda. Budget amendments, we might not want to just put those under a consent as an example. So I guess that's listing those kind of interesting. Under D, items that cannot be discussed in public, we don't need to talk about what can or cannot be discussed in public. There is specific law that tells us what we can and cannot discuss in public, and we need to simply state the law. Number 2 under that says anything that violates the right of privacy cannot be placed. I have no idea what you think is right of privacy, any more than I know what I think it is sometimes maybe. My wife will tell me all the time, you cannot do that in our backyard. You cannot go out there in your pajamas walking the dog in the morning. And so that's the right of privacy issue. I don't know what that is. So anything that violates right of privacy cannot be placed on discussion open session. I don't know what that really means. Under 2, 3, and 4, under taxpayer liaison, I know what we're talking about in complaints, but our policy doesn't explain what complaints are. So elaborate on what those may mean. They're complaints to the taxpayer liaison officer, but I think it needs to say that maybe each time, knowing that the problem with policies like this is that if I want to do something as a member of the public against you legally, I'm going to pull the part I want to pull and not pull the context that comes with that. So I think it needs to outline it and make it very clear. Director and citizen contact during board meetings. Citizens addressing the board, instead of using the word open forum, nobody knows what that is, just say public comment. Citizens may address the board on agenda items during public comment for agenda items. Number 5, groups of more than 3 people wishing to address the same item shall appoint one person to represent the groups. That is absolutely illegal to do that. You have to, we're gonna have open comment, we're gonna have open comment. If you wanna have 30 people from Castleberry come, they're gonna all come. We're not gonna tell them you gotta come with one person to represent. Number 9, public speakers may not discuss and the board will not entertain public comments on matters that are not under TAD's jurisdiction. We've gone back and forth on this conversation that Alfred and I have, and I've come back to the attitude of I don't think it's legal to tell, but it's a public comment. We don't get to tell, use Chandler, let's talk your public comment. We don't get to tell Chandler what he can and cannot talk to us about. If he wants to come and say, man, Lake Grapevine's getting really low on water, well, we can say that. So we would say, okay, that's good. Thanks for sharing that. Voting on motions. I'm just changing the when voting on a motion, the chair may at his discretion. Right now, it's a his, but it may not always be. So, communications policy. Number 1, individual directors cannot speak in official capacities for the board outside the boardroom. I don't think you can do it inside the boardroom either. So I would put a period behind the board. Individual directors shall not and cannot speak for in official capacity for the board. Number 2, chief appraiser shall not represent any communications outside the board meeting that has not been directed. I'm going to say to strike outside the board meeting. You should be representing us inside. We're going to skip a page. We're going to skip 2 pages. That's all I have. So just a few cleanup items there, and probably pretty easy to clean up, but if not, let me come back to the issue about the attorney. We have direct reports, but the attorney is one that we pay by the hour. He is not a staffer of this organization. I emphatically disagree with saying that any board member has the opportunity to call an attorney at any time they want to about any topic they want to. That if you need it, there's 2 things. If you think you need an attorney to sit on a volunteer board of directors, you are on a horrible board of directors. You need to really question whether or not you should serve it invested. Second side of it, though, is that we do not have inside legal counsel for you to refer to. We need that. We need all to have that conversation, but it's outside legal counsel that we're paying by the hour to do work for us. And so I would not agree that board members have the right to call the attorney anytime they want to about anything. I had this conversation with Mr. Tepper and numerous other attorneys that do government legal work for boards of directors. It's pretty common in the business that you go through the board chair and to receive the opportunity to have that conversation. Part of the reason is that this entire side room had the exact same conversation for the attorney. We should make one 15-minute phone call instead of 15 minutes each that ends up being an hour and 15 minutes on the phone at any attorney's rates. We actually get pretty good rates with this attorney. I'm not going to tell him he should raise his rates, but well, I sure don't have anybody else in this business that's as cheap as he is. However, it's still taxpayer money you're spending, and you don't have the right to spend taxpayer money with an attorney just to be. Yes, sir.
Rick, I agree with your comments on looking for internal legal. I know from discussions with William Durham and others, we spend significant amount of money outside of William Tepper when we litigate that could be greatly reduced if we have internal counsel. And I think it's true that many appraisal districts our size have their own internal counsel to handle those kinds of activities. So I think that's something we should look at discussing in the future. Your comment related to groups. At the City of Fort Worth, one of the things we do is if you're willing to form a group, we give the individual that is speaking for the group additional time. And so you may have one person that speaks for 5 minutes instead of 5 people speaking for 15. Just a food for thought.
Okay. Other comments? Yes, ma'am.
Regarding the taxpayer liaison section, section E number 4, regarding the TLO shall notify parties to the complaint at least once a quarter on the status of the complaint. I've seen complaints that are, people will complain just to complain
And so we may bog down the TLO, because of some, if it's a true complaint that should be followed up on, but there are people that will call to complain because the sky is blue. So I think we can add, you might be able to come up with a great word, for a distinct purpose, a specific, you could think up a really good attorney word to put in there, but I think for the parties to complain at least once a quarter, that she has to, contact them once a quarter for their complaints. There's some complaints that people are just gonna complain. So it was just food for thought on that one.
So something.
Substantive, thank you.
Well,
Thanks.
with this suffice, so if you just struck 2, 3, and 4, it said the agenda for each regularly scheduled meeting of the board shall include an agenda item for report by the taxpayer to this officer.
Or for me.
All right, other comments? Or a motion? Or are we sending this back to a lot of comments?
So we're taking the time out of there and we're determining the time in each day.
I'm good with taking the time out.
I threw a lot of stuff.
Chair. Including the attorney. All of them.
Just for point of clarification, the clean version of this was not having the engagement of legal counsel in it. It's at the prior regular and track version. It's that it is.
Yeah, I'm proposing we add that back.
We got that back in.
It's been moved that we move forward with the policy manual as we discussed here. There's a second. All right, any further discussion?
I would like to see the revised before I vote personally. We have a motion on the floor.
There is a motion on board. We can table that motion. Or we can remove the motion. No, it's not true. We got to table the current motion on the floor for a future time. You want to remove your motion? Or you want
My
to?
motion stands, but if you want to delay,
Let's bump this one more time.
Yeah.
April will come back to this conversation. With that, please, let's finish it. Right.
Yes.
I'll tell you that the challenge that we've run into in this is open meetings issues, and that there are times where I'm getting calls from some of you about what ought to be in here, but I can't call others to say we've done that, and so that's just what's caused. Yes.
I guess I just removed that.
Well, I think she went through her original motion and you went to the second. And I just corrected that we're gonna finish it next week. Free of the actually have to worry about it. And say, that what meeting we were at? No, we're just gonna, unless there's argument against my decision. Okay. Now we'll- Other comments? We have 2. Say yeah.
Hearing some news about Teller ISD is going to split. And my question with the chief appraiser is, how would you handle that situations? Because that was never happened before in all the county. If we create a new, not only a new school district, but several split properties, except several districts only of school districts as well. Would you like to avoid splitting the district between one property or either residential or commercial? How do you handle it? That's the question. And the next thing is here, several school districts are here asking to reappraise their property. I don't remember what percentage of kids are economically disadvantaged in Castleberry ISD, but I do remember it's over 90% in Forward, 76%, somewhat close to 76 or more in Arlington ISD. My own school district is 27%, and that was mentioned by Skip, the previous one, not the new one. But Carroll ISD is close to 1% economically disadvantaged kids. Everman ISD is over 94% economically disadvantaged kids. So there is a clear divide. You can see in the decision of ISDs and school district trustees when they have a school district with more economically disadvantaged kids and schools with less economically disadvantaged kids. And similar pattern you can see in city councils as well, but their funding is different, not like the school districts. So please do consider and do not create not ununiform and unequal appraisals, unequal taxation in this county. Although I know in my neighborhood, the property values are going actually down. Properties are selling in less than asking price, less than the appraisal values, all because the appraised market values was inflated because of not selling for the years for the real value. It's worth auctioning. If someone asked 800,000, people from California showed up and said, I will give you more than $1 million. And that happened in my neighborhood as well. But now the property values are going significantly down, or expensive properties are not selling. Please do consider those factors. Thank you.
Thank you. And our last speaker is Mr. Ben.
Me there.
I'll come back.
Ladies first. Mr. Martin, let her go. All right, thank you. I'll get you. Yeah, you know, hopefully. Daniel, Ben, you're spot on. Without access to Mr. Tepper, we wouldn't be sitting here today. And you're right, Mr. Barnes. Those board members feel they have to reach out to Matthew Tepper without notification of the chair. Think about it. You've been an absentee participant for how many years as Republican chair? Same goes for everybody in this room, except for Mr. Campos. Mr. Campos knows the validity and the value of being able to reach out and get a determination with somebody they can trust under a client privilege. So if we have to spend $67, what are you charging, man? $67 to travel? Here? So, yeah. Okay. I've seen his bills. Money well spent. And nobody in this room understands why it's money well spent. I would have spent it out of my own damn pocket. That's how important it was. But all you've been absentee owners except for Mr. Campos. So I pleasantly disagree with you, and I think that should have that access. Thank you. But I haven't looked at other things to speak to. So I got dinged for the penalties and interest for maps. You said we didn't go back to 08, didn't we? Remember, it's a political thing. Taxpayer really knew what this place was doing since 08 when Jeff Lowe became chief appraiser. Even going back further, they would be down here with pitchforks, but losing their homes at the county courthouse just because they went through legal. But yet all these other people get their penalties and interest forgiven because he makes his job as chief appraiser. I think the gentleman who was chair for 24 years, he keeps his job. That's all. That's what it was. Or you have to work. Mr. Blaylock, thank you for attaching and give some audit trail for IT expenses. Good job. Thank you. Some of the ARB applicants were turned down. They were notified through text. I think we need to do a little bit better than just text somebody, especially for an open records request. Okay, I think you need to send an email or a hard copy letter saying you're. I think it will protect the district. To your point, Mr. Parks, I agree. I wasn't gonna waste your time here. Last time I stood here, 6.0C. The board may amend the approved budget at any time, but the secretary of the board must deliver a written copy of the proposed amendment to the presiding officers of the governing body of each taxi unit participant within the district, not later than 30th day before the day of the board update. Okay, when it says, I only got 9 seconds, that includes mayor. If you look under the code for the election, use that language of those being notified. Superintendent or president of the school board, and it lays it out for you perfectly. You don't have to guess what presiding officer means. Thank you, thank you. It's an administrative code 6.7.
Lucas, go ahead.
Thank you. Maybe I was too sleepy and didn't mark it, so I appreciate you accommodating. I want to correct because yes, I said 20% before, but yeah, only 15% of the taxing entities, if it's actually 7 that send a resolution out of the 49, are complaining about this issue. So I don't understand if the numbers are so wrong, how do the other 42 taxing entities are fine? And I care about this because I'm from Arlington. And the city of Arlington already increased our tax rate this year to make up for this difference. And if we appraise everybody, it's working. I'm loud enough as it is anyways. If you approve this change, Arlington will be appraised. So I will get a tax rate increase plus an appraisal increase. So I'm gonna be definitely hurting here. Also, Arlington ISD, that is huge, apparently go to get things work. And we are also a very fluent place of sales of houses. Second, there was an open records done here by my friend Penny, that she's the old lady that spoke here the last time. But she was inquiring if it's legal or if it's procedural for a chief appraiser to request taxing entities to send resolutions. Because when he spoke in the meeting, he made it sound like the taxing entities were so bad, so they had the initiative to submit a resolution asking for a reappraisal. But if a chief appraiser tells me, we're not gonna do this, but if you do this, we might do it, seems like you're encouraging them to come and request for this. Even so, only 7 out of 49 did that, so that should tell you something. Are we doing stuff just for a 15%? Hurting an 85%? Because even moving into next year, we know how it is. We like to kick the can down the road, and next year would be more children being hurt or some other sorrow story that we'll use as an excuse to, again, probably put the can down the road another time. Once again, please stick to your plan. And yes, I'm looking forward to hearing if that is a procedural thing that you request resolutions. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, the board will recess to executive closed session pursuant to the following parts of the Texas Open Meeting Act, Government Code, Chapter 551 for the purpose of meeting sections 551, 074, 551, 071, 551, 076. We will return following that meeting in students that we need to make. At this time, oh, sorry. At this time, we reconvene, in open session for further discussion of possible action on items deliberated in executive session related to section 551, 1071, 551, 1072, 551, 1074, 551, 1076. In that meeting, we did, discuss a personnel matter that related to the agreement for our chief appraiser. And we had a first amendment to the employment agreement entered into December 18th, 2023, January 12th, 2024, between the board of directors and the Tarrant Appraisal District, the political subdivision of the state of Texas and Joe Alcott is entered into by between the board, TAD and the employee, and I have the whereases and the actual policy in front of me. I'll entertain a motion to accept that. It's been moved that we accept that amendment. Is there a second? The second, is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of that amendment, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries, so we will process this and have it into the file following the meeting. The second issue in that meeting then was a follow-up. We spoke with the legal counsel on the issue of the reappraisals. So that is back on the table for conversation. Conversation or motion.
So, Mr. Chair, before we get to 6B as it's written, I propose that we consider modifying the reappraisal plan to start in even years.
Second. Seconded it.
So it's been moved that we amend the reappraisal plan to occur in even years. To begin in even years. Discussion.
Starting in 2025, but this 2025 is an odd year, or so clarification.
Take the 2-year reappraisal plan as is, but don't begin it until 2026.
Without the freezes,
Sorry.
no freeze.
No freeze. Just begin it next year. That's correct. There'll be a reappraisal this year and it would begin to October. Take the 2-year freeze, but shift it 1 year down. Have a Christmas gift, wait till Christmas, do it in 2026.
Your previous plan.
Wait, this is. Any discussion from the board? Motion on the table is to amend the reappraisal plan to appraise this year and have a freeze next year. So any further discussion? Hearing none, I'm gonna ask for a roll call vote.
Aye.
Aye.
Alfred,
No.
Morris,
No.
and you.
Yes.
No.
That's 4-4 votes, so it fails. Discussion back on the table on the topic.
Make a motion. Yes. I move that we table this item indefinitely.
We move, we table this item indefinitely. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
We move that second, that we table indefinitely. Discussion on that motion. Hearing none. Call for roll call vote. Aye.
Burgess. Nay. Right. Campus.
No.
Alfred.
Yes.
Morris.
Yes.
And you.
No.
Yes.
Yes.
That motion, that discussion action item is now tabled indefinitely. Is there any further business for the meeting today?
If they don't pass it.
Said what resolution?
We just did the resolutions that were presented to us. we had the resolutions presented before us and we were going to either approve or disapprove
Their resolutions,
from the school districts.
that was resolutions they passed in their own board of directors meetings and sent to us. Those were not our resolutions.
Okay, they presented them to us for approval or disapproval.
We just tabled that indefinitely.
We tabled the reappraisal plan.
That's right.
So you're saying encompassing that includes those resolutions?
Yeah, those resolutions are ours to approve or decline. We didn't write those resolutions. Those, their resolutions they brought to us. We don't make decisions about anybody else's resolutions.
It says consider modifying reappraisal plan related to resolutions for Maysville, Castleberry, Redmond, Fort Worth, Kennedale, independent school districts, and the possible effects regarding the 2025 property values.
I'm aware of what it says, and we just, instead, the consideration of that was that the topic got tabled indefinitely. Is there any more items to come before the board? Hearing none, is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
It moved that we adjourn. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. All opposed? Motion carries.